Stephen。
係 Alton。
多謝你咧，今日又代表 Global X ETF 啦嚟教下我哋啲 ETF 嘅小知識啦。
多謝你啊，真係。
咁我都知道有唔少投資者咧都有啲對 ETF 嘅流通性有啲誤會嘅喎，可唔可以俾我哋知係佢哋誤會啲咩嘢咧？
咁往往啦，佢哋會我哋見到啲 feedback 啦，就係話流通性好似成交量好低啦。會唔會影響到我買入時候嘅一啲困難啦？同埋最緊要係賺咗錢啊！如果沽出嘅話，會唔會亦都好有困難？呢一個誤解對投資者嘅傷害性好大，因為 ETF 啦其實係有3層嘅流動性嘅，而大家着眼去見到嘅啦，我哋就叫做二手成交嘅流通性啦，亦都係成個 ETF 裏邊最低嘅流通性嘅嗰個部分嚟嘅。其實就總共有3層嘅流通性啦，有一個我哋叫做primary market 就最基層嘅啦。我哋亦都有一層我哋叫做 hidden liquidity 咧，就中間嗰層嚟嘅。咁兩層都係比上板成交量係會大好多咯。
即係我可以當係個成交量咧，其實我哋喺個畫面見到咧係一個冰山嘅一角啫。係啦，其實下面仲有好多 liquidity 嘅。
絕對就係冰山嘅一角咯。咁投資者可以留意翻幾樣嘢啦。每一隻喺香港上市嘅 ETF 啦，都一定會有流動性供應商，我哋叫 market maker 啦，亦都會被稱為莊家啦。咁佢其實背後啦，有可能係隱藏住大量嘅流通性可以去提供嘅。佢擺上板俾你見到嘅貨源啦，有可能只係一部分嘅啫。咁呢個其實係好多投資者都有可能會咁做嘅。一隻個股你持有嘅股份，如果你係想沽貨嗰陣時候，你未必一次過擺晒上板噶嘛，你有可能會分唔同批數，即係譬如你有1萬股，你有可能放咗2000股上板先，但係你其實有8000噶嘛。咁流動性供應商亦都一樣嘅，你見到佢放2000上去啦，其實佢底層裏邊有可能有好多唔同嘅流通性，有可能個盤好大嘅。ETF 個流通性啦，其實就係講緊佢作為一個基金啦，佢包含咗嗰一籃子股票裏邊啦，每一隻個股嘅流通性，成隻 ETF 最差嘅流動性啦，就係睇緊佢嗰一隻個股嘅流通性究竟有幾細咯。
咁我想請教多一樣嘢咧，我都知有個字叫做 creation， 即係 ETF 嘅申購，或者係redemption ETF 嘅贖回。咁其實呢啲嘢同個流通性嘅關係喺邊度嚟㗎？
個流通性個關係就極之大嘅。通常啲流動性供應商即係個 market maker 啦，佢大家要諗下一隻 ETF 啱啱一上市嗰陣時候啦，照常理嚟講，其實市場上面就冇人有貨㗎嘛，係咪？咁其實呢個流通性供應商啦，作為你可以當佢係一個 wholesaler 咁樣嘅一個形式去睇啦，佢其實就會同ETF 嘅發行商啦去認購。咁佢就會俾錢我哋啦，我哋就去買呢一籃子嘅股票啦。咁呢一籃子嘅股票就係跟蹤緊一個指數嘅。咁買咗之後啦，我哋就會幫投資者 hold 住呢一籃子嘅股票，但係我哋就會俾咗一隻 ETF 嘅流動性供應商。咁佢就可以喺二手市場度放翻俾零售投資者咯。個意思就有少少似大家如果去超級市場買汽水一樣啦。咁其實大家去買汽水嗰陣時就未必直情去個汽水廠嗰度買噶嘛，大家都係透過譬如超級市場啦去買到大家中意嘅飲品啦。同一時間啦，如果個流動性供應商因為佢係兩邊都會參與噶嘛，即係如果你想沽貨，佢又會幫你買貨；你想買貨，佢又會沽貨俾你。咁佢有可能有陣時貨多嘅話啦，佢就會同我哋贖回翻啦，即係會 balance 翻佢自己。佢可能自己揸太多貨，佢有可能就喺一手市場嗰度啦，直接還翻啲 ETF 嘅基金單位俾我哋啦。我哋啦就會相應地destroy 啦呢一啲基金嘅單位啦，跟住我哋就會喺市場度沽翻嗰一籃子嘅個股啦，就俾翻錢個流動性供應商咯。咁亦都要提下大家啦，呢一個process 啦，即係喺一手我哋叫 primary market 一手市場裏邊所做嘅認購同贖回啦，唔係淨係流動性供應商即係 market maker 可以參與嘅。所有即係好多人都可以參與嘅，你可以透過輝立去參與㗎，其實係啦，咁可以咁樣做。
哇，好多謝 Stephen 咧，今日都教咗我哋有關 ETF 嘅啲流通性嘅故事，又有表面嘅，又有底層嘅。係啦，好啊，多謝你啊！希望你有機會再邀請你上嚟同教我哋啲 ETF 嘅小知識。
多謝 Alton，
多謝你。Hello, Stephen.
Hi, Alton.
Thanks for coming today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I mean, you are from Global X ETF. You are expert in ETF. Yeah, sure. Many of our investors, they have some misconception on ETF's liquidity. Can you elaborate to us more about what kind of misconception they have?
Sure. ETF liquidity to a retail investor is often the most misunderstood aspect of an ETF. Many times, an individual investor will take a look at the volume that's been traded or that's been done on the market, or the amount of liquidity or the amount of ETF units that are on the bid side or on the ask side. They take this as the entire ETF's liquidity, which is definitely a misconception. For an ETF, generally speaking, there are 3 layers of liquidity. What we just mentioned is called the secondary market liquidity or the on-screen liquidity, which happens to be the smallest portion of an ETF's liquidity. There's a secondary layer and then there's a primary layer. So for the secondary layer, one should understand that ETFs always have market makers, and the market makers actually hold on to a lot of inventory, but they don't necessarily have a need to show the entire inventory out. This is actually the same as when an individual investor who has a position in a single stock, but when they do buying and selling, they only put up a portion. So an individual investor will actually do the same thing. They don't have to show their entire inventory, so to speak. And right at the bottom, which is the largest layer of liquidity, is what we call the primary market. So it is actually the liquidity of the constituents, so the individual constituents. And if we were to dig deeper, an ETF's liquidity is only constrained by the least liquid single stock within the ETF. So that is actually the true process or the true theory behind an ETF's liquidity.
I see. So the index provider, they have all kinds of screening before they put constituent stocks into the index. And at the same time, you teach us the liquidity we see on the screen is only a tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg, yeah. So to elaborate, actually many investors should feel assured that within an index methodology, which is what an ETF issuer like ourselves, we normally track an index. And within the index, they have many different filters. For example, a very common filter within ETFs is stocks to be considered must have a liquidity requirement. For example, a 3-month average daily turnover of say 20 million Hong Kong dollars. So this means that the index itself will not allow or not choose on rebalancing day a single stock constituent that has a lower liquidity than that amount. And also there are oftentimes market cap filters. So for example, an index might also have within its rules, we will not consider stocks below, for example, $1 billion in market cap. Market cap and average daily turnover are normally in line with each other. The larger market cap the company, the larger the turnover. So if the index itself is not going to accept low market cap or low turnover, then the true liquidity of an ETF is definitely not what you may see on the screen.
I see. I also heard of the word ETF creation and redemption. Lastly, can you let us know what is these 2 terms related to the liquidity of the ETF?
Sure. So creation redemption is actually the process in which the primary market functions. Investors of all types, they can go through, for example, Phillips. They can approach the ETF issuer if they're a participating dealer of that ETF, and they can put in orders to create or redeem the ETF in its full lot size ratio. In Hong Kong, that's how it's done. So what this actually means is you can actually give money for creation, or sometimes it's called in cash or in kind, directly to the ETF issuer, and they will buy the correct amount to issue ETF shares back to the investor. The reverse process is the redemption, where the investor gives the ETF issuer back the ETF units, and we appropriately destroy, and then we sell the amount of shares to give back money to the investor. So this is often the largest pool of liquidity within an ETF.
So it's the
it's like an iceberg. Yeah, it looks like an iceberg.
I see. Wow, I think this kind of information is very useful to all of our investors.
It definitely is.
I also learned quite a lot today. Thanks so much, Stephen.
Thanks, Alton.
Thank you.